Today we are really excited to welcome Ashanti Moritz here to talk about spiritual wellness for our adult session. This session is brought to you by the Skull Valley Band of Goshutes and is sponsored by the Regents Blue Cross Blue Shield of Utah, Utah Division of Substance Abuse and Mental Health, Utah State University College of Humanities and Social Sciences, Utah State University Emma Eccles Jones College of Education and Human Services, and Utah State University Extension. I am going to be your room host. My name is Claire Warnick, and then we have Lizzie Smith here who is going to help moderate things. If you have questions at any time during the presentation, please feel free to type in the chat box or send us a private message. And we will be taking questions at the end of the presentation. So if you have a question during the presentation, feel free to just type it in, and Lizzie will keep track of those questions for the end. Just a reminder again that we are recording the session, so if you would like to remain anonymous, please follow the steps I will put in the chat box to change the name on your profile or turn off your video. And again, if you have questions, you can either raise your hand or just type the question in the chat box. And now I'd like to go ahead and introduce our featured guest for this session, Ashanti Moritz. Ashanti, you may have to correct my pronunciation, is Makah from Neah Bay, Washington, Tlingit from Kake, Alaska, and Shuswap from Kamloops, BC. Again, please correct me if I'm sure I mispronounced all of those. She is currently the Outreach Director for Warrior Spirit Recovery Center, which is located in Tooele, Utah, and is owned by the Skull Valley Band of Goshutes. Warrior Spirit Recovery Center is an outpatient and residential treatment program which specializes in helping individuals who are dealing with substance use issues. They provide a balance of spiritual, mental, physical, and emotional healing through Native American traditions and healing ceremonies. Ashanti is certified in Wellbriety as well as Survivors of Homicide. She's an active member of the Salt Lake community and is a volunteer for Young People in Recovery, League of Women Voters, as well as the Utah Youth Initiative. So we are so excited to have you here and to be able to hear from you today. So thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Claire. Thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Ashanti Moritz. I am Makah from Washington State, Tlingit from Alaska, and Shuswap from Kamloops, BC. Those were all difficult, including my name, so do not have any fear. It probably took me a very long time to pronounce them, and I probably, I don't probably say it with the correct accents or anything. Hi, you guys. I am so grateful to be here and to be presenting on spiritual wellness. I am myself a person in long-term recovery from drugs and alcohol. And so being connected to the medicine wheel or the wellness wheel has a very special place in my heart. And spirituality, I've been thinking about this for, probably 6-7 weeks and putting so much thought into it and just well, how do you describe spirituality? And really, what I came up with is that for me, all I can do is describe my spirituality or what spirituality means to me. And the biggest word that came from that was connected. So spirituality for me means that I'm connected to who I am as a human being having this experience. I feel like when I used drugs or alcohol or shopping excessively or whatever it was that my addiction was leading me down through, I would, in a sense, push my energy or my spirit out of my body because my body was experiencing so much pain from childhood trauma. Sorry, I'm by myself in a room. No, I have my mom, but I get really emotional too. So, and sharing my story usually makes me cry and I'm really nervous. So when I would use drugs and alcohol, the pain was so overwhelming inside of my body. The nonstop talking that would go on in my mind would just be so much to handle. And I would use whatever substance to kind of push my spirit out of my body. And so one thing that I like to do now is to honor my body and honor my mind and honor my thoughts and my feelings and honor who I am. And, you know, I was listening earlier and I seen that basket and I was like, man, you know, part of mastery in that basket weaving is knowing the process that it took for that cedar, whatever wood that they were using, to even get to the point of pliable. So you had to know how to gather it, know how to strip it, know when to strip it, know how to soak it, how to bend it. You know, there's a lot of steps that wood had to go through to become transformable into something that we would use to gather, to hunt, to carry our babies, to care for, you know, to live in, to embrace and put around us. And I'm like, you know, just for that basket, there was so many steps and so many points of transformation. And just like becoming an adult or becoming a 2-year-old, I could imagine, is probably really difficult. You have to go through all of these steps where every day is a brand new day and every day there's a lesson. And it, you know, and then eventually you get to 2 and then you get from 2 to 3 and, you know, and then you just kind of work your way up through life. So spirituality for me is a lot like that. I had to really go inside and connect. So, you know, there were parts of my life where I was really able to go to powwows and to be involved in celebration and Sundance. And there were other parts of my life where it was very dysfunctional and very confusing. And there was a lot of things, you know, and I have to take accountability. And part of spirituality is allowing somebody else to take accountability too. So I had my part in my actions, and there was other people that had their parts and their actions. And I had to get I don't know, I'm rambling. I had to get to a place where I was like, okay, this is my body, and I'm going to allow myself to be in it in a spiritual manner. So, you know, what I do for that wellness is give back to my community. Is I volunteer as much as I work. I show up as much as I can, you know. This last year, I was given an amazing opportunity to be the outreach director for Warrior Spirit. And we opened up and we had to find a curriculum, and then we had to find people to work there. And we, you know, and then this major task of finding people who are not well needed to be given the opportunity to have a place to get well. And it was like, okay, what can I do to help their spiritual sides? Like, what can I do to invite this? We have to create a space and be able to meet people where they're at. And unfortunately, you know, that means going downtown and seeing people in their rawest, darkest moments of drinking and intoxication and outside of homeless shelters, sleeping at parks. And you have to create a space in which it's like, I understand where you are and what you're going through. On some level, it may not be exactly what you're experiencing, but I'm here to help you. And for me, that is spirituality, that connectedness to the people who need it the most. And I have like this weird feeling that we're only as strong as our weakest link, like as a humanity. Like if we were all holding hands and we were all doing this together, that one who's pulling away, probably because of fear and shame and everything that they were given when they were younger and negative self-talk, like we are only as strong as if we can hold them up and continue to hold them up, even when we're walking through the darkest of times. And to me, that is spirituality, right? Like having that connectedness, knowing that I'm about this big, even smaller than that, in this great big huge beautiful universe that we live in, right? But yet this light that creator has given me is something so big that we can see the stars in the universe, and we can see the planets, and the planets move and orbit each other. And that's what spirituality has given me in my life, is to know that I'm small and big all at once. Creator made me and gives me this power to live throughout this life, and to really just show up without judgment. And that means to push through a lot of fear. That I'm reading this really amazing book, and it's called Just Listen, and part of it, he says you have to get to this moment where it's like, oh F, right? And then identify what that feeling is immediately. The faster you can identify from what brought you to like, oh F this moment, right? Like, oh F, I'm scared, to oh F, I'm scared and I'm okay. And you can take a deep breath, and then you can transform and continue what spirit or source or Mother Earth or, you know, like Creator has in store for you. I'm in recovery, and so I don't get to like put a name on it, because so many people will pull back. Like if I were to call Creator God, that could offend people. And it's not about offending people. It's not about you say this or you say that. It's about creating space. It's like blank space. This is for me. So source energy, light, love, Creator, whatever that name is, blank space, you know, has this side of spirituality, and in that is just is really connected. So connected to the way I speak to myself, connected to the food that I bring into my house and then bring into my body, connected to how I speak to my children, how I speak to my mom, how do I speak to my community members, how I speak in my groups when I share, how I speak to my employees, how do I speak to my boss, how would I like to be spoken to? And all of that has to do with this connected to being a spiritual person. It's respect for yourself, respect for others, having faith, which is this crazy phenomenon of like not knowing what the world has to offer you and just being open to it anyway. And I really like faith is so big in my life. I really faith is probably one of the biggest gifts from spirituality, because it really takes me out of the driver's seat, and it takes me from having to be in control and knowing what the outcome looks like every step of the way. It puts like this blindfold on, and faith is just like gonna walk me through it, and somehow it's going to be exactly what it needs to be. And it's that comfort piece of like, okay, what can I do to grow through this moment? What can I do to attach to this moment and feel strong? And I'm looking at my screen, and there are so many people, and it's freaking me out. It is so funny. Sorry, and I cry. This is a huge moment. I don't normally talk in front of a lot of people. And so I'm really scared, and I have to honor that for myself, is that that's a really scary thing to know that Creator gave me this position of talking about one of the most important things in my life, and that's spirituality, and how I can show up as a spiritual being, having like this human experience with all of these emotions and with all of these unrelatable expectations. I have so many expectations, not just for myself, but the people in the community in which I live in. I expect there to be manners and politeness and kindness. And when I'm driving, I'm like, how hard is it for everybody to just let people merge? I don't know why that's a spiritual experience for me, but I'm like, man, when I'm driving down the street, I feel it's our protection to care for the people that are walking or riding their bikes, or their kids that are out and they're playing. Like, all of those things mean that I promise to show up for you guys. I promise to show up in my community. And I know that that is a spiritual gift, like to know that if the speed limit is 25, it means because at 30 something deathly could happen to a human being that is not prepared for a car to go that fast. So I'm really trying to push through my fear here. I am really grateful for this opportunity. I'm really grateful for what spirituality has given me. It has given me the chance to go to a lot of places and, you know, show up for a lot of people. As an outreach director, I probably talk to, sometimes my phone rings up to 80 times in one day, in between 7:30 and 7 o'clock at night. And that's so many family members and so many desperate people looking for help and asking for it. And one thing I get to say to them is, like, you've done the hardest part, and that is actually calling and asking for help. So if I could, you know, challenge anybody, it would be like, ask Creator for help, you know, ask him for help and see what you get and see how he shows up. And it could be in really small little gifts, or it could be really bright lights right in front of you. And my hope that is that you just feel at peace, right? We all have like so much going on. We're on a computer right now. I spent 12 hours driving to Washington State. You know, I'm supposed to be in Salt Lake City, but my family needed me. And that means that as a spiritual gift, I get to show up and be a reliable individual who was not a person of my past at all. I was far from reliable. I wasn't the person that could just leave on the drop of the dime and make sure a family member gets home and that another one can come back and that our family can stay well. That wasn't who I was before. And I know that that is a gift from Creator. And that's a lot. And I am running out of things to say. We could open it up for questions, if anybody had questions.
Thank you so much for sharing. So I haven't seen so far through the chat, questions have been coming in, but there are just so many comments of how this is moving. You are powerful. Everyone is so proud and honored to be here with you and have you be open and sharing this. Thank you so much. Again, if people have questions or things they'd like to put in the chat, we'll read those off. But as of now, I have not seen any specific questions come in, but great job. Okay, there was one. This one says, suggestions for how folks can begin to get connected.
Yeah, for me, I think that if you're talking about connected to yourself or connected to spirit or connected to your community, one thing that I did was I started looking around my community and seeing things that really interested me the most. And so women's rights was huge to me. It was one of the biggest things, especially being Native American. I wanted to be an advocate for our communities. And somehow I was just talking about it and thinking about it. I used to volunteer and do a lot of grassroots things in my younger age. And then all of a sudden, an opportunity just came screaming at me with League of Women Voters. And they were like, oh, well, we really, really need this insight and this input. And could you help us do this outreach stuff? And then there was Young People in Recovery, which is YPR, and it is nationwide. You don't have to be young nor in recovery to end the stigma of people in recovery. So I probably volunteer as much time there, up to about, 20 hours a week. We do groups twice a week. We do huge barbecues and meetings and events and putting together recovery activities. If you're talking about connection, with yourself, I used a lot of meditation and I do a lot of reading and self-help books. I do I smudge a lot. I smudge all the time, and I will just sit in my living room and I will look at the eagle feathers that my family and I have collected from all over, and I just think about different ways that I'm still connected to the people who have passed in my life, or the ones that are still suffering with drugs and alcohol and are just kind of absent in life right now, because there's a lot of my family members who are just absent in life right now. You know, they're still alive, but they're not living well. So I'll look at the feathers and I'm like, man, like we really do come from one source, and we can really either be together or we could like be separated, but you can never take us from one another. And that is, how I like to connect to my family, because I live in Utah. My family's in Washington, Alaska, and Canada. I don't get to come up to Washington as much as I'd like to. Yesterday was quite the travel. It was like nonstop for about 12, 13 hours. So let's see.
Yeah, we've got a few more. There are some different topics, and two of these look like they kind of share the same idea. The first one says, will you share what you do and how your community can support your efforts? After that, there's one that says, are there specific resources that you often share with your community?
Yeah, so I am the outreach director for Warrior Spirit. We are located in Tooele, Utah. We are a treatment center for Native Americans and non-natives. We are a Medicaid program, so if you qualify for Medicaid in the state of Utah, you qualify for our program. If you are Native and you do not qualify for Medicaid, we find the resources or scholarships to help you come to our program. It's not a private pay. We don't, it's an amazing program. We do sweat lodge. Our curriculum is Wellbriety, so we're working on becoming certified white bison facility. So everything that we do is Wellbriety. We hold Survivor of Homicide groups. We do a NEPI. All of our when we volunteer anywhere, it's for our Native communities. And so that was something that was really big to my soul. I would talk about how badly our community needed it for years and years, and I was given the opportunity to help create it. So it's like my little baby, and I absolutely love it. I give it so much. What is the second part of it? Are there specific—
This one, so those two were kind of together. I think hopefully that you answered and did a great job for responding. One other one came in and it says, doing your outreach on the street, how do you approach the topic of spirituality, or do you, to the people in all diversity?
Yeah, I do reach the topic of spirituality. I like to talk about how cultural sensitive our program is and how open and inviting it is for both Native and non-Native. So to me, being Native American, my culture is deeply embedded into my spiritual side of who I am. It makes up so much of it. And so when I find people and they're on the street, if they're Native, I'm like, look, we are a Native community. We are literally built here for you to come home and find whatever it is that you're looking for. Or just, even there's sometimes where so right before it was winter, I'm like, or just come and be with us and get off the street for the winter time. Like, whatever you find there, whatever sticks to you, I hope that it brings you more. I'm not expecting you to travel any type of path or to, my one goal is like, yes, abstinence would be great, but that's great for me. It doesn't mean it's great for everybody. But one thing that I know is great for everybody is being off the cold street in the winter. And I'm like, just come and be with us. No expectation. Be safe. Have some spiritual healing. Whatever it is, have food. Help, I would feel better if I knew that you were warm and you weren't sleeping outside. And even if it is just to get off the street, you call me and I'll find a way to come pick you up and bring you in. So, and that's true. And it'll be the same, you know, before next winter, I'll go out and I'll pass out scarves and hats and coats, and I'll tell them the same thing, and I'll put my card in their pockets, and it has my private cell phone number on there. It's not so private anymore. It goes everywhere. And you know, and it's the same offer. It's, you know, I don't have judgment where people are on their journey. I was all over the place walking throughout my journey, and there were some days where I really wanted it and some days that I knew that I could do it, and that would go away so quickly, sometimes within the hour. And so I kind of have that realization that that's what people go through while they're walking through it. So whether it takes, you know, some people 60 days and they get it, it took me 19 months of continued care and treatment and of every single level. And that's what it took for me to get it. So there's, you know, there's no judgment. It took me a long time. People like to say some are sicker than others. And I'm like, it just took me a very long time to get what I needed to get.
Yeah, thank you for that response. Again, I still think we've got time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Claire, but there's a few more. Someone had commented regarding on how to connect that White Bison is a great way to connect. There are online Zoom meetings which are open to all people. Denise, thank you for sharing that. Another one says, during COVID, is your facility accepting out-of-state clients?
Yes, our facility does accept out-of-state clients. What we do is we test them, and then based on that negative test result, they are quarantined on site in our facility for 10 days and then retested again. 2 negative test results, then they are allowed to fully engage and participate. Until then, they'll be quarantined on site, still have access to the doctors, just not be physically in the groups with all our other clients. We have 3 or 4 designated rooms.
There's a few more.
Okay.
One from Danny says, I think that my tribe would benefit from Wellbriety, but I'm not sure how to approach our council with it. I'm young in recovery and unsure if they would take me seriously.
Yeah, but I get that. I definitely understand where you're coming from with that. When we were starting our facility, I had to go and speak to the council, and for some reason they wanted me to speak to the council, and you guys all see I'm not the best presenter person. I'm like, this is what, you know, this is what the benefits of Wellbriety are in our community is, one, you know, Don Quayes had started this, I'm going to say 30, and I'm sorry if I'm wrong. It could be longer, it could be less than, about 30 years ago, he had started White Bison and wrote the book Red Road to Recovery. At that point in his life, he has traveled all over the United States and through Canada, sharing, you know, Wellbriety in all of in our communities. And so it's something well-versed and trusted. And I feel like that's why we went with it. And that's why I wanted to go with it. So, because I know that there's this connection that our Native community has with this, and it's so successful, you know, mind mapping and just the spirituality part of it and the connectedness. And then wherever you go in every state, there's Wellbriety groups there, and you have a home with them. It's like NA or AA or CA, wherever you go, Native wise, you have a group or you can start a group, you know, and it's very inviting, open, and it's given me more than I could ever imagine. It really has. Wellbriety has given me more than I could ever imagine having. And to go and speak to your council, if you want, you can have my number. We could talk about it and I could tell you what I did and, you know, like the words that I used, and I brought the books. I you know, had pictures of my altar. I shared my experiences, and you know, we can see about maybe just getting you some training first. Like if you want to be Wellbriety trained and certified in Survivors of Homicide, I'm not sure if they're doing it still, and then mending broken hearts. And then I volunteered and did a group for a year at the Urban Indian Walk-In Center before, you know, like I was ever given the opportunity to do this as a job. So I don't know if that answered. I hope it did. But yes, you can have, here, I'll put my phone number up. You can have my phone number and you can call me and we can talk about it.
Thank you for sharing that. I see that as well. Trisha had posted a website that looks like it's a link to your program. I hope that would have some answers as well. But I'm just scanning through, and you can look through the chat to see if there's some things that you think would not be available through that link. Thank you for sharing that information, Trisha.
Yes, thank you guys. You guys are amazing. I'm so grateful to work with you and to be doing this with you guys. Yeah.
Hey, Lizzie, it looks like we have a couple more minutes left, and there was a question about, in your opinion, how could one be able to regain their spirituality and connectivity after trauma? If you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, after trauma. Could you repeat the question?
Yes, how would one be able to regain their spirituality and connectivity after trauma?
So I can relate to that question. I've walked through a lot of trauma in my 38 years of life, and I feel one of the biggest things spiritually is that I was given this amazing counselor in my life, you know, and I told her, you know, like, I'm really mad at God over everything that's happened, and this is such a good moment in my life. And she was like, you get to pick who your higher power is at this point. So if you have someone in your life who has loved you unconditionally, who has shown up, you know, it could be a best friend, it could be a teacher who recognized, you know, that you were struggling and who was encouraging you or knew that you could do the work and, you know, pulled you aside and was like, look, you know, I really believe in you. You can use those words and that feeling that you gained from those little tiny moments in life, and you can connect that to a higher power, because that's what a higher power is for me, is like all those little moments in life that are strung together and is showing unconditional love and support. And after trauma can be so incredibly hard because there's so much shame, there's so much guilt, there's so much fear that comes in after just walking about, you know, and trauma can look different for every individual. So a child could be really traumatized by a parent yelling, you know, where in the same exact household, their sibling was not traumatized by that. But yet, whenever a loud voice comes on, or whenever something in TV is loud comes on, or an experience at school, their brain goes back down that path, right? So trauma shows up differently for every single individual. And for me, the best connection after trauma was finding someone or something in my life that I loved. And for me, it was my dad. So, and I was like, hey, you know, I felt a lot more comfortable with that being my higher power, of like that unconditional love, no matter how many times I got arrested, because it was so many, no matter how many times I, you know, ended up in trouble or in bad situations, he was always there. He always answered his phone. He was never mad at me. He was never shaking his finger at me, telling me, look at what you did now. He was like, oh man, we really need to get you food, or you really need some water. And to me, that's what source is, or creator or your higher power. It's that person that shows up and sits with you and is like, you really need some water right now, who's, you know, just willing to create space next to you. So any loving moments, a good book, a feeling from a really good movie. I love Pride and Prejudice. It helps me fall asleep at night knowing that there's like some imaginary love out there that is so powerful that you will walk to it in the field in the middle of the morning. Like that, you know, a movie can be that, you know, it's that moment of happiness when your heart starts to flutter. That is source coming to you and telling you, you deserve this all the time.
We still have a ton of things coming in, just saying that this is so amazing, and they're thanking you for the courage you have to speak out and share with everyone your feelings. A few more questions. Sorry, I'm trying to go through so I make sure we get everyone's. One was asking what the name of your program is in Tooele, as well as what kind of support does Warrior Spirit need? What kind of support do you need?
So it is Warrior Spirit Recovery Center support. We are, you know, I think that we get a lot of wood donations, which makes me really happy because we do sweat lodge. Every other week the men go, every other week the women go. And we are a center that supplies tobacco, rolling tobacco for our clients. And I know that could go either way, right? When I was in treatment, I gave up smoking. So that's part of my story. However, that actually hinders a lot of people from entering treatment or staying in treatment. Like, can I smoke when I get there is a number one question across the board. I feel like it should be on our website, like, this is a smoking facility, so more people feel comfortable. And we provide tobacco, both menthol and non-menthol, and tubes and stuff. And so I would say that's part of those would be the only two things. You know, other than that, I can't really think of what they need. We get so many wonderful, wonderful donations from our community, which are it just warms my heart all the time. I probably get weekly calls of like, what can we give you? What kind of clothes can we do? You know, it's just overwhelming how many people love to help. And I really do feel like that's part of that connection. Thank you for putting our website up there, Trisha.
Yes, I'm glad everyone can have that. And as well, we see a few, just a ways back in the chat, we had put up her number as well if you wanted to contact through that way. Donna had asked, please share where you found a 19 months of continuous care. It's hard to access 90 days where I am.
Oh, yes, right. So my story is, you know, like, you get to own your story, which was really cool. When I was finally ready, after lots and lots of trial of error of trying to get ready, I had called my dad, and he was like, okay, well, if you're really ready, you know, I'm going to come pick you up. And he was like, but you got to do absolutely everything I say. And that scared me more than anything, but I did it. And, so it started out in Washington, and it was really pieced together all over. I did detox and then a 30-day inpatient, and then I went to California and did 9 months inpatient there. And then I did 10 months of every level of care under intensive, intensive outpatient, you know, and lived in sober living and had to continue to go. And it was really pieced together by different facilities. I would like to say the one really unique aspect of Warrior Spirit, and I don't want to like turn this to advertise them, anything like that. Red Pine is also amazing too. They have an amazing facility. They do Wellbriety. They're absolutely wonderful. I hope, I think that they're supposed to be open and like taking people soon. And I'm really excited for them because they just do amazing work there. Their counselors are amazing. So one cool thing about Warrior Spirit is it's not a typical 30, 60, or 90-day program. We have people that come in and they do 60 days. We have people that come in and they've stayed 8 months. You know, it's kind of like where you are and what you need. Once you're there and you're able to ask for it and continue working for it, we just want to support you and really, really push, like, okay, like, what else can we help you get through? It's kind of like when you're layering back the onion, like, where else do you need help? What else is coming up? What else is showing up for you? And really just sit with you and create a space. So, I absolutely love that about programs, is some of them are willing to take a little more time. But if you need like 30, 60, 90 day, there's all sorts of places where you could piece this together. There's places that take like Medicaid, and then that could be the outpatient, and then, you know, so there's a lot of ideas of how we could puzzle this together. I think every puzzle has lots of pieces. It's just about putting them together and taking a few steps back to see the picture and how it fits together.
Thank you. A few more coming in. One says, do you think learning to reconnect must first start with the risk to let someone or something in as support?
Oh man, yes. Reconnecting to your spiritual side is, I would say, the biggest risk that you will ever take in your life. And I'm so grateful that you're even thinking about that risk, because it means that these seeds are coming in and it's going to transform into something beautiful. There's so many things that I had to give up and change in order for there to be sobriety in my life. And that they're not kidding when they say, you know, you don't have to change one thing, you have to change everything. It's absolutely, I had to risk who I was and, excuse my French, the shit that I was sitting in, because as an addict, you get really comfortable sitting in your own shit. And I've really had to just be uncomfortable for a really long time. There were so many hard days. There were so many hard moments where people called me out on so many behaviors, and I had to like hear it and really just be like, the number one risk is like, maybe it's not them, it's definitely could be me. And I really had to take that risk all the time of like, if 5 people in the house are telling me the same thing, it really probably is me. It has nothing, you know. And so I've really, the biggest risk that you will ever take is giving yourself another chance. And it's the biggest reward you will ever receive is being able to earn your wings and fly through a different life.
Awesome. Thank you. We've had some information come in from Red Pine RTC just saying thanks for the shout out as well. And they gave their number for information, or their number that they can be reached at for anyone who wants to jot that down. One question came in saying, what do you like of the new concept of sober living and treatment center versus regular treatment?
What do I like of the new concept of sober living and treatment centers versus regular treatment? I mean, so I might not understand the question all that well. So for us, we have inpatient treatment, and then we also have 2 more levels, transitional and then sober living. Sober living, you know, sober living is a commitment, guys. Like, you have to really show up for your clients when they're there. There's so many times where you just want to be naturally you, and that really offends 15 other people, and they have to figure it out and work together and try and live, whether it be like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, however long they're there. You know, sober living is a tough situation. You know, I think I got called out every single week on like at least 5 things. People don't like the way you clean the bathroom counters, and they will call you out on it. So you really have to become aware of things like that. And I don't know if I understand the new concept, living in treatment. I don't know if I understand that part. Oh, is sober living not as disciplined, though Native culture? And thank you for clarifying. Yes, I agree. Sober living not as disciplined through Native culture. I don't know if I can speak on all sober livings, you know. I think that in our community, I see some that are doing differently than others. And, you know, I'm excited that there's a space for people to be sober. I think with every situation in life, there's going to be some people that bend the rules or can't, have a hard time struggling or going along. There's always hard situations, hard things with people. I think as you progress, like you'll get to this point where like no matter what the people around you are doing, you're really going to want to hold steady and not follow the crowd, or, you know, not go backwards on your thinking. I don't know. That's a tough question. I'm really sorry. I can't answer it better.
Okay, it looks like we maybe have 5-ish minutes left. So if anyone else has a question, or if you want to ask a question verbally, just raise your hand and we can unmute your microphone and have you ask then that way, if that's easier.
Oh, I did want to say thank you for everybody for participating, and everybody who you know, enrolled in taking part of this and sharing it with your friends and sharing the medicine with the communities. I see a lot of faces that I'm very familiar with, and I'm so grateful for those people. Denise, thank you so much for showing up. You're such a pillar in my strength and in my life. I'm so grateful to work with Michelle and just Trisha, just everybody on the team, Claire, you guys, Tim, just you guys work so hard and so diligent to provide resources for our communities and experiences like this. And I see your efforts and I see your work, and I'm just so beyond grateful for all the things that you guys do. Huge shouts out to Maria and to Carlos. You guys are just amazing. I never get tired of listening to you guys or learning from you. So grateful to have you guys to look up to, and, you know, for all the treatment centers that are just out there and they're doing this. I'm so, you know, I think that my number one thing in life is that I just never want to compete with you. I want to help you shine and be what you are meant to be. And just, I'm so grateful that there's so many resources coming together for our community members and for our tribal members, especially, you know, that we have a chance to create a space for healing and connectedness, and to you know, heal our spiritual side, which is really funny. I never thought of it like that. My whole life is that my spirit was hurt and sick and I needed to heal it. So I'm really grateful for these opportunities.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashanti, for your time and for your experience and for sharing all of that with us today. It's been very powerful, and we are so grateful for your courage and your openness. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
As far as schedule goes, I guess for everybody, we'll have a 15-minute break, so you feel free to get some more coffee or a snack or whatever, and then we'll be back here all together in the same meeting room to kind of talk again with Maria about what we've seen and what we've heard and what we felt so far today. So Thank you again so much, Ashanti, and everyone for participating this morning.